We're chatting to Tyler McLoughlan, who manages Bobby Alu, and we wanted to take the opportunity to talk to a manager who uses the platform pretty regularly, just to get her perspective on how it's used and why. So I'd like to just get a general sense of how you guys have used the platform and use it, you know, presently.
Yeah. So initially, when Bobby began using Parlour, it was simply a bit of a video that went out and a call out to people that might be interested. And we had no clue whatsoever what would come back. And it was pretty amazing the response that we had. So, in the first instance, it was actually a really good bit of evidence to us that there was that support amongst just the general public, I think. So that in itself was quite useful. From there, we used the initial Parlour run, which I think was around 21 dates around Australia initially, to do. It was almost a rehearsal run for his next single tour. So he was at a point in his career where he was about to finish touring internationally with Xavier Rudd, who we'd been playing percussion with. He'd had a bit of a gap of performing, and it was just a bit of a reintroduction for him into the performance space again. And also with a new band, it enabled him to kind of road test new songs, bring the new band on board, get rehearsal time down without it having to come directly out of our pocket, and also have some amazing connections with people and fun along the way as well. And that first Parlour run was, it was pretty amazing on a cash flow perspective as well. It was, they went pretty hard on the first tour that they did through Parlour, and it was, full weekends. I think one weekend they did like 5 shows in 2 days or something like that through Parlour. So just skipped around to places that were in close proximity and punched them out. And so they don't do that quite as often anymore, but quite often they'll still do 2 Parlours in a weekend day, just to kind of make it worthwhile on a financial level. So the first tour was interesting just to, understand that there was that demand. From that point onwards, we've kind of used Parlour as a couple of different things. So firstly, it has been a platform that we've been able to then reach new fans with, absolutely. So we might have a diehard fan that hosts a show and all their friends come along, and their friends then buy into the whole Bobby Alu experience, and they feel part of the team. So we've seen a lot of those people coming to our venue shows and our tours, and they tend to be really great at bringing their friends and really kind of feeling part of the team, which is great because we love that. And so that's the first kind of element in terms of how we've used Parlour and how it's been useful. Secondly, the financial aspect of it. So we'll often have a few little gaps in tour dates, particularly if we've got to travel quite a bit, pay a lot to get to WA or South Australia. And we're able to use Parlour to just offset those costs. So we'll have the platform sitting there. We can see, there's a person in Adelaide that has, or on the outskirts of Adelaide that has wanted to host a show. So we'll potentially put that into a run where we've also got an Adelaide date. So generally we're looking at dates that are a little bit away from the venue date. So it might be half an hour to an hour, and they slot in really nicely. So the cash flow side of things is great. But then also too, just outside of the touring cycle, we might have a point where we just need to get some cash together, and we're able to go out and do Northern New South Wales or Southeast Queensland dates really easily over a weekend. And that just enables us to, have the ability to plan future activities through that cash flow that comes in.
Yeah, I want to hone in on something you mentioned before about finding new fans. One of the misperceptions about Parlour is that it takes away from other, venue shows that might be cutting into or cannibalizing other opportunities. Can you talk to how you've found that not to be true?
Yeah. We've found that it's completely the opposite. That Parlour actually supports the venue shows in a great way. We've had headline tours, support tours. We've always had Parlour people in the audiences, and they're generally the people that go straight to the front, and they stand there and they want to make sure that Bobby's seen them, and then they usually point to their partner going, remember these guys, or their friends that came, and it's really sweet. In Newcastle on Thursday night, we actually had this exact scenario play out, which was nice. And I was standing up the back and I saw someone up the front handed him a drink on the second song. And it was one of the guys that we'd done a Parlour show at in Newcastle from, I think, 6 months ago.
Wow.
So, I don't know that we would have seen them at a show, and we wouldn't have seen them bringing their friends if they hadn't have had that experience.
They feel like they're part of the story.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, they are. They're part of our team. They're part of our story, and they then go and tell all of their friends. And it's a huge deal for people to be able to go, this artist that I love came to my house. So that was really nice. That we've had everybody. We've had loads of people on this last tour that have been Parlour people, and I think nearly every single show except for one the other day. So he's done, I think, about 9 dates at the moment, and every one of those shows we've seen people from Parlour, which is really, really beautiful and lovely.
Amazing. I'm interested in how you sort of, we'll talk about the agent thing in a second, but how you share the Parlour link, because it seems like with the way the data flows in, it feels like that's sort of different to the whole idea that you have to announce and then you can't announce again for 2 years. Like, your data seems to drip through from all around the world, obviously from where Bobby's fans are and places you've never toured to before. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so every now and then we'll do a bit of a shout out. Might be a reinvigorated pitch or some new video. So the video saying, Bobby wants to come play in your house, that lives on our socials, on our YouTube, so anyone can find it at any time. Typically, if we do a bit of a fresh, call out for Parlour shows, we'll get quite a few people coming through, but it's dripping through, all the time. So I think yesterday we just got a new one from Spain, and I was like, oh, okay, Spain, that's interesting. That's the first time we've seen Spain pop up. At the moment, Spain's not really on our hit list because we don't know who we've got there, essentially. So these kinds of things are really great for understanding, potential new places for Bobby to be touring. So yeah, we encourage new applications at any time. I do update our Parlour page as well, just saying if we've got any particular gaps. So for instance, when he was supporting Xavier Wright in North America in October, we listed a couple of specific dates because we'd wanted to do potentially some Canadian Parlours, and at either at the end of the touring. So in the end, we ended up doing a California one, which worked out really well. So we just did a nice little intimate performance. It boosted the cash flow, $1,500. It was a simple one to do on the way out of the US, and it really, really absolutely added to our bottom line for that tour. So sometimes we're stringing them together a lot. Sometimes they're just one-offs because it makes sense to do. He's in that particular location. So generally we update the Parlour page when we know that we're going somewhere that we might need to connect some dots. And that seems to have worked really effectively so far. But yeah, it's just something that it's part of our toolkit. It's one of the things that we do, and it's just there all the time. Sometimes we push it, sometimes we just let it sit. But it's always this open thing that enables us to see where there might be some new fans and some new activity.
Yeah, really cool. The way you use it and some other artists are using it as well, particularly overseas, is that community building tool where it's like this is a private show, it's off the grid, but out of it, you're able to to build your audience so that when we do go to do the venue, there might be another 20 people that are going to buy tickets to that venue show nearby.
Yes, that's absolutely how we're using it. And yeah, I think it's something you can use Parlour in a way that nobody really knows that you're using it other than the people that are wanting to have a show. So when we're touring, for instance, so we're at the moment just locking down some touring dates for February and March 2020. So there's one thing that's fallen through that we're still having to go to Western Australia for. If we were, if we were in a time frame where we weren't using Parlour, that would be really difficult to get our heads around. We're going to have to chew up the cost of getting to Western Australia, where we previously had these 3 kind of festival shows locked down. 2 are no longer happening. In my brain, it's not a problem at all because we know that we've got ample time to put together some Parlour shows and help offset that cost. So it's been this really great tool for enabling that to occur. So where things might fall through or, tour dates are hard to pin down and things happen and things change. And knowing that we've got Parlour sitting there in the background enables us to just slot things in if we do have these unforeseen changes. And it means we're not dropping money on travel costs and accommodation as well. I think you were asking a different question just then, though, weren't you? And I went on a different tangent. But but yeah, back to your point. We'll often, nobody will know that we're doing Parlour in and around these tour dates. They just slot in nicely. But the long term benefit is that we will see more bodies coming to venue shows in the future, purely because we do enough of them and it starts to add up. So it's something that you can either tell everybody that you're doing or it can just completely run under the radar. And it's good because you've got that flexibility to choose how you want to use it. So it to me, it does seem like this platform that you find the way that it works best for you and you utilize it like that. So if you don't want to necessarily be, seen as being, doing house concerts, then you don't really have to outside of the fan base. So I think that's also a really great benefit of Parlour. You use it as you want to use it and as it fits with your career.
Yeah, totally.
One thing that I think we recommend that artists and management do is boosting on social posts and putting spend on ads and stuff.
Yep.
Have you guys done it and has it worked? And have you found targeting, say, using your Spotify metrics that has kind of helped?
You know what? I actually haven't used it really in that way, which is interesting. I'm not the best social media person. Like, I know how to talk to the fans and things, but in terms of putting targeted ads and things out there, I generally get help with that. And so we haven't really done that too much with Parlour, which is interesting because we've still got a really great result from it. So I think if we were to start targeting, and also at the moment we haven't really, the targeting I feel like will come into play a little bit more internationally for us. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. So once we've finished our touring period in Australia next year, about mid-April, we're now looking at the international side of things, and Parlour is going to play hopefully quite a role in that, because it'll enable us to be in a territory where you're not just restricted to the Thursday to Sunday kind of shows. And even like the Spain application, they specifically mentioned they wanted a midweek night.
Yeah.
Like, beauty, this is great.
Yeah.
We love that because we don't have to sit around not earning any money in the front of the weeks.
Yeah, and midweek requests are really quite common, I think, which is really interesting and such a benefit for so many artists who don't want to have their weekends blocked out with other things, or they want to keep them free. Yeah, it's super interesting. That whole, the thing that you're, I think, honing in on, which is really important that we're trying to always communicate. But I mean, I think managers and agents to some extent and artists are so time poor all the time, right? Like everyone's trying to get stuff done and they're limited resource. Is that idea that that you can use Parlour to build, and it's not like I think that scarcity mentality is quite big, particularly in this market. I feel the idea that like you can only do so many shows before you've maxed out your fan base, and I think that may be true in some cases, but for the most part, there's an opportunity to continue building this sort of community around your artist. Outside of the digital world, obviously people's social numbers are always going up, but this is an opportunity to go and make it real and turn that sort of that passively interested fan into someone who's very actively engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. I get what you're saying about the scarcity thing, and I totally see where that does have a place in the industry. We've just not had any concerns about that whatsoever with Parlour. It's just something operating on a completely different level. So, even playing 4 shows in one weekend, 4 Parlour shows in one weekend at a particular location, that's okay. And then when we come back and do a tour a month later or 6 months later, we have the benefit of all of those 4 parlours that might have, minimum 40 people each. We'll get a handful at least from every parlour coming to the ticketed show. I definitely see the scarcity aspect working particularly well when we're talking about headline shows in particular places. But I feel it's not really too much of a concern with Parlour, because it's just, as you say, it's just building that audience and prepping them for the next time you've got a ticketed event or a festival or a support show to come along to. Yep. And they feel that more invested. You've been to their house. It's a pretty personal thing going to people's houses.
Totally.
And it's just on a what's the level I'm trying to talk about? But on a personal level, it certainly it suits Bobby's music particularly, I think. So there's definitely certain styles of music I think it will suit supremely well. And with his music, it is a bit more of an emotional buy-in that people have, and so that kind of works. You go into their house with this music that's all about trying to live a good life and be a good person, and we've attracted those people from the Parlour applications too, which is really brilliant. So it's nice. It's like this family of fans that have been completely boosted through this house concert experience.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Tyler.
My pleasure. And I'm always happy to say nice things about you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Tyler.
Hey guys. See ya.
See you later.